How likely is Michael Pittman's dream season to continue? What do you do with Garrett Wilson coming off an injury and a tough defense facing him in Week 10? And what's the latest on the Jacksonville wide receiver room after their big trade with the Las Vegas Raiders? My name is Eric Balkman. Hey, stick around. We got a great show for you tonight. We have Doug Haines, the 11th place team owner in the FFPC Main Event, hopping aboard. Don't go anywhere. Ferrell Elliott is not here, but I am here. Doug Haines is here. We got a great show for you. Stick around. The High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour is live right now, next after this.
Can't stand the pressure. I've seen greater men than need lesser.
Broadcast live and heard around the world, you are now watching the most entertaining hour of radio on the planet. Welcome to the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by myffpc.com with your hosts Eric Balkman and Ferrell Elliott. The High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour is your home for analysis from the best players in the world. And now, because no one else was available, here are Eric Balkman and Ferrell Elliott.
Solace in the scripture. Are we not all our father's sons? I became a man. Nobody ever told me what a man was.
Thank you so much, Rob. Greetings and salutations, all you Balkaholics and Ferrelliacs tuning in tonight. Welcome to the latest episode of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by myffpc.com. That is myffpc.com, the Fantasy Football Players Championship. I'm your slightly above average host, Eric Balkman. You can connect with me on X at Eric Balkman. You know me from the RotoViz High Stakes Lowdown, the Better Sports Network's High Stakes, I beg your pardon, FFPC Insider Access, and the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour, which is what is going on right now. My co-host is normally the definitive commissioner of fantasy football, Ferrell Elliott. He is off on assignment out of the country tonight, so he will not be here, but that's okay because we got a great co-host fill-in tonight. Coming up on tonight's show, we're going to talk about a lot of stuff going on in Week 10 in the FFPC. We had the trade deadline this past week. What do you do with your Seattle receivers? What do you do with your Kansas City receivers? What do you do with your Las Vegas and Jacksonville receivers as well? That's coming up tonight. Plus, we're going to talk to the 11th place overall team in the FFPC main event heading into Week 10. He is Doug Haines, and he's going to give us the skinny on how he has gotten his team nearly to the top of the leaderboard in the FFPC main event, a competition that will pay off $1 million grand prize. We'll get into the latest going on in the FFPC with the NFL news that has come out over the last 24 to 48 hours. And of course, your start and sit questions answered on the show tonight. Want to remind you for everybody who is looking for some weekly action with the FFPC Sunday weekly challenge is live. The Thursday challenge closed last night before the Broncos and Raiders game, but we do have the Sunday challenge alive right now. No draft, no salary cap. Just pick your 10 favorite players or 12 favorite players if you want to play with the kickers and defenses. Win up to $2,500, 10, 30, and 100 team players, or 100 team contests, with the FFPC. Only one player per NFL team. So bear this in mind. If you want to play with Justin Fields, you can't have Garrett Wilson. If you want to go with Quinshon Judkins, you can't have David Njoku. That is the stipulation. One player per NFL team. myffpc.com is where to go for that. Remember to like, subscribe, comment on this video, share it with your friends, share it with your enemies, and get notified each and every time we go live. And I'll give you the latest on what we are doing with going live next week coming up at the end of the broadcast tonight. That's at myffpc.com, youtube.com/FFPC fantasy as well. Okay. I want to bring in, I mentioned at the top of the show, Ferrell is on assignment. He's out of the country. He's doing a lot of stuff right now, so he can't be a part of the show tonight. However, I'm very excited to bring this guy aboard. He is coming into Week 10 of the FFPC main event. He is sitting in 11th place, which means only 10 teams separate him from winning that $1 million grand prize in the FFPC main event going into Week 10. This is a guy that we're very excited to bring on tonight, and it's a guy that's going to educate you, and we're going to have a lot of fun with for sure tonight. Please welcome, making his debut on the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour, one Doug Haines. Doug, so glad to have you on tonight, man. Hold on. There we go. I got it. I just had to figure it out. We got you on right now. Doug, good evening. How are you, man?
Pretty good. I'm not sure I'm going to educate anybody, but I am definitely honored to be able to join you, talk fantasy for the next hour. I will say this, like I try to talk to my wife about fantasy and she leaves the room in 5 minutes. So hopefully we don't have the same result, but I am disappointed that Ferrell's not going to be joining us. I was looking forward to talking to him, and I hope we have low expectations because those are big shoes to fill.
Doug, here's my promise to you. If you end up winning this $1 million in the FFPC main event this year, not only will Ferrell join us on a show with you, me, and him, I will have him launch a new podcast with you and him, just solely all about FFPC, all about the KFFSC, and you can have him aboard tonight. I feel bad that he's not on the show tonight, but I'm very excited to talk with you tonight because this is, I mean, we're talking about rarefied air here, man. November 7th, 2025, and you go into week 10, 11th place overall in the main event. I can't imagine what that's like. What is it like for you?
Well, it's exciting. There's a lot of luck involved, obviously. And you have to have good fortune and stuff. But yeah, it's kind of crazy. I mean, I remember last year, I think I was in the hundreds and I felt pretty good about that. So it's a long way to go. And, but I do appreciate the good sentiments, a good introduction. There's other leagues too that I'm in. I'm doing pretty well, but yeah, the main event is the one and only.
What do you think about, because I feel like you have been, sort of floating at the top of the leaderboard, not only this past week, but the last month plus. What's it been like seeing your name and your team up at the top of the leaderboard? Because this is, a lot of people who play in the FFPC will never see that, but you've been seeing it quite frankly, frequently over the last several weeks in the FFPC main event.
Yeah, I've been, that leaderboard thing's pretty cool to look at. I don't even spend as much time in my standings. I just kept kind of look at the leaderboard. Even last night, just like seeing how far you go down, and so, when Jake Ferguson took that 0 a couple weeks ago, I think I kind of shrunk a little bit there, but yeah, it's pretty cool. And I tell you what, my wife will tell you, Sundays are stressful in our household. She's like, why are you so up in, and I was like, I got to get a touchdown here. And they're giving Mark Andrews a tush push at the 1 instead of giving the ball to Henry. It's just kind of, it's some of the things that happen in fantasy football. I think all the audience will admit it happens to every one of us, but yeah, that gets frustrating, but it's so fun to do. It's a release for me, for my, busy job. And just, it's something I caught on the FFPC. I think I heard you on a XM radio, yep. And that's kind of how I got started on it. And I think I've been in it 3 or 4 years and kind of kept building on it. But yeah, it's I've done pretty well in the 12, in my regular leagues, and I was able to leverage that. And this year is obviously, this might be the best team, knock on wood, that I've ever had. It feels like it with the team I have right now within this league.
So
within this main event league.
Yeah, and I think, Doug, this is important. Let's lead off with that. Why is this the best team that you've ever had? Did you do anything differently coming into the 2025 drafts, or was this just, hey, the ball has bounced my way? I got really good quarterbacks, running backs, receivers, tight ends, whatever. Like, I drafted really good this year. Did you do anything different in this draft season as opposed to previous draft seasons?
Yeah, and what I do a lot of times, and especially this year, and especially the main event and the Gorilla, where $1 million is on the line, and you're trying to strive to get the most points. And what I tried to do, and it doesn't happen, on every, I look at volume too, but even on the later picks, I'm trying to find teams who, one, have not a great defense, and
yep.
two, have the potential to have a lot of scoring, potential. For example, the Cowboys, going in, I knew they had a bad defense going in. You read all the stuff in the offseason, and then you knew their offense would be powerful. I try to stay away from the Jets players, the Browns players, the Saints players. And so when I'm going through my draft, that's kind of what I'm looking at. I'm looking at, teams that are going to be in an over-unders in the high 40s or lower 50s and those kind of games. So, because the end of the line here is you want to have the most points. I know there's head-to-head, but if you have the most points in your league, you're going to qualify for those weeks 15 through 17, yep. And that's where the big money comes. So that's kind of what I did this year. I do it in a lot of the bigger leagues I do it in, but especially the main event and the Gorillas.
I think that we're going to explore this over the next half hour on the show tonight, or maybe half hour plus, as you are joining me for the full hour tonight. Before we get into everything fantasy football, I want to ask you, when you're not hanging around the top of the leaderboard in the FFPC Main Event in 2025, Doug, can you let us know what you're doing for a living?
Yeah, I think it's kind of similar to some of your other guests. I'm in the financial world. I'm a CPA. I'm an accounting head at an investment management company here in Arizona. So I do that. And then, like I said, fantasy football is a kind of release for me. I also enjoy spending so much time with my family. I have 2 sons, 2 daughter-in-laws. We all kind of do fantasy football, or they love football in some cases. We have kind of parties every Sunday, especially to watch our teams play. And I have those moments to talk fantasy football with my, boys, and recently became a granddad. So I have a 1-year-old granddad and a 2-month-old grandkid.
Grandson. Yeah.
So I can't wait till they're old enough so I can participate in fantasy football and maybe get them an FFPC.
Right. That's what it's all about, paying it forward for sure.
Yeah.
You mentioned having this with your kids. How old are your kids? Like, do you co-own any of these teams with your kids at all?
No, I do get advice from them, and they have their separate leagues. They're not in they're not in the FFPC yet. I've tried to, I've talked to them about it, and tonight I just explained to one of my boys the main part of it. I've co-owned like baseball. I'm in baseball leagues, so I've co-owned them with them, but I do have a lot of discussions with them about players. I'll get a text every once in a while about, who do I start here? And like last week, one of my kids asked me, and I said, Kelsey or Kincaid? And I'm a Chiefs fan, and our whole family's Chiefs fans. And you can probably see that by my teams, but I told him Kelsey, and look what Kincaid did. So I apologized to him really quickly. I had actually the same choice, and Kincaid was on my bench. So, in this same league. So we all make mistakes, but yeah, it's really fun to have this interaction with the boys, and they know what's going on. They're old enough. One's 34, the other one's 28. So yeah, they're old enough that they get involved in this, and they're not probably in many leagues I am, but they are definitely involved.
So let me ask you this. You're a Chiefs fan. You're living out on the left coast in Arizona. How does one become what was this a case of you like living in the middle part of the United States and you became a Chiefs fan there? How do you develop your Chiefs fandom? And I'm going to get into this in a second, because clearly it's bled over into your FFPC high stakes fantasy football league ownership. And that's caused you to be near the top of the leaderboard right now. How does one become a Chiefs fan living in Arizona?
Originally from Missouri. So me and my wife been Chiefs fans since early 90s. We've been through some tough years, and luckily hit the jackpot with number 15 there. But yeah, we've been a Chiefs fan. I've been out in Arizona since year 2000, I think. So it's been, I'd say I'm an Arizona resident now, but yeah, I'm true and true Chiefs fan. So, but yeah, from the Midwest.
It's funny because this past Tuesday night on the RotoViz High Stakes Lowdown, I had Kurt Kikas back on the show, and he, he's been all over the country, lived a lot of his life in Southern California, but now he's in Arizona as well. So we talked a lot about the Arizona Cardinals. Do you have any penchant towards Kyler Murray, Marvin Harrison, James Conner, Trey Benson, Trey McBride, any of these guys in Arizona at all? Or are you strictly 100% Chiefs?
No, when my other main event, I have Marvin Harrison. So I've been kind of happy that because he wasn't clicking with Kyler. I have no interest in Kyler. I had Trey Benson, and unfortunately that didn't work out. Hopefully he'll be back, but I did have him in some of the leagues. But yeah, I have Marvin Harrison in my other main event league. So I'm very happy. Last week I think he had the most targets or most catches he's had as a pro, and so it just seemed like him and Kyler were never hitting it, and so it's pretty cool to see that.
Are we going to see it not that I want to dwell on the Cardinals, but I feel like there's, you watch, I can't remember who was, I think it was JJ Zachariason talking about this with Theo Greminger on one of the Fantasy Points podcasts. And he pointed out how Marvin Harrison is sort of like a reserved guy, very understated. And then when he was asked about Jacoby Brissett running this offense as opposed to Kyler Murray, smile from ear to ear. You looked like the Cheshire Cat. He was very excited. Can we read enough into this to say that, hey, Marvin Harrison really likes the fact that Brissett is in at quarterback over the next 4 weeks plus, now that Kyler Murray is on injured reserve? Is this a player, if you have any insight into this, Doug, I'd love to hear it. But is this a player, both these players, Brissett and Harrison, that we can like bump up our rankings, bump up our starter sit categories when we talk about, what we have on each of our high stakes leagues based on Brissett being in charge of this offense now? Because it seems like everybody in Arizona really love this. Do you love this?
I would say, I was never a Kyler fan. I don't have Kyler anywhere. So I'm not sure I would pick up Brissett anywhere. But I do believe, based on last week, Harrison's body language looked a lot different, like you had said. And so I think going forward, I'm not putting him on my bench or McBride. I had Harrison on my bench like 3 weeks ago. And I'm glad I did, because he didn't do anything. But hopefully last week was a indication of what we'll see. Now they're playing Seattle this week. There will probably be a lot of points scored. They don't have a shutdown corner, but they have a good defense. So it'll be interesting to see how they do this week, the second weekend. There's more tape on Brissett now, but based on body language, Harrison, night and day last week compared to the other.
I want to bring this up too as well, and I feel guilty about this because Ferrell Elliott is the biggest Michael Pittman fan on planet Earth, like even more so than Michael Pittman himself. But I want to bring this up tonight. Pittman over the last let me just do this. Over the course of the first few weeks of the season, 6 for 80, 4 for 40, 6 for 73, 5 for 41, 5 for 39, 2 for 20. You don't sneeze at that. Like, that is something. It's not great, but it is something. However, if we go back to week 7, Doug, and start from week 7, 7 for 58 and a touchdown, 8 for 95 and a touchdown. This past week against Pittsburgh, 9 for 115 as well. What's the likelihood that Michael Pittman's magical season continues, given that he has not put up these types of numbers over the course of his career, and we're halfway through the season, and he's already doubled up on the touchdowns that he scored this year? He's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. He's got 6 touchdowns this year. That has not been something that he has been able to accomplish halfway through the season in any year of his career in the NFL. I'm curious to what you're thinking with Michael Pittman, given that he is one of the main cogs on your 11th place team overall in the FFPC main event. Is he going to be able to continue this production through the second half of the season?
I mean, selfishly, I hope he does. I've had him, like you're talking about his rest of his career. I've had him many years. He's one of those guys that, I don't know, him, Montgomery, some of these other guys, I can't leave him. I got to, I keep having him on my team. And he was one of those. I got him in the 8th round, which I thought was great value at the time. I wasn't expecting this, and I wasn't expecting Daniel Jones to even be the quarterback at time. But I honestly, I hope he's a top 15. I don't expect him to keep doing the numbers you've been seeing the last like 3 or 4 weeks, only because game script's going to change. I mean, one game they play Houston, he's going to see Stingley probably. The Chiefs game, Chiefs have good cornerbacks. They usually do pretty well against the receivers, but it could be a high script game where there's going to be a lot of offense. And then they play Jacksonville twice. I just looked at the next 4 games. So he could do it. He's getting the red zone targets, but you have a lot of mouths to feed there with Warren, Josh Downs, Alec Pierce to an extent. And then I think with that offensive line,
Taylor to a certain extent too, as well, right? Yeah.
I honestly think that the Sauce Gardner trade, I when I saw that, I'm like, dang, I don't want them to be a defensive team. I want it to be high scoring. With DeForest Buckner going out, it may still be that way now, but with Sauce Gardner there, I think they're trying to trending him. We'll see more. And Danny Dimes, and I call him Indiana Jones, but they're going to, I think, come back a little bit to earth and more of a ground and pound thing. And so, and maybe I'm pessimistic and hopefully that doesn't happen, but I could see them start giving 20, 25 carries to Jones or to Taylor. And then Pittman maybe does it, but he's still going to get his action. He's their number 1 receiver. He's a great route runner. So I just hope he's top 15. I don't have him as my, like this week I have him in my, but usually he's in my flex. So, but the way he's been playing, he's not going to be my flex anymore. He's going to be one of my top receivers. But yeah, you're right. I'm depending a lot on him because those are the kind of players that you need to hit for you to win that big money.
And Doug, that's what it comes down to, right? Like Taylor's not going to take away. Like Taylor's going to do what he does. But I think when it comes down to it, you're talking about Daniel Jones, who I'm not high on this week, but I am high on for the remainder of the season. Pittman's competing against a rookie tight end in Tyler Warren, who's been very good, but very sporadic as well. Josh Downs, who's been very sporadic, like Alec Pierce, the definition of sporadic. Like, so I think that's what it comes down to Michael Pittman, right? Like on this team, like I could totally see him. And people bring up the term league winner, like in September, in October. I think you can't really bring it up until December. Is Michael Pittman a league winner? He is in the category, right? But he is not there yet. But the fact that you have him on your roster and you're 11th place overall in the main event, yes, this is the type of player you want on your team going forward. Speaking of the Colts, and you mentioned Downs and Pittman here, I noticed on this 11th place overall team, you also have Rashee Rice, and was it Xavier Worthy on this team as well, right?
Yeah, and I also have I had a Hollywood earlier.
Hollywood Brown.
And
yeah.
I just dropped him. And Downs, I wish Ferrell was here. He'd probably love me because of all the Pittman talk.
Oh,
he's the president of the fan club, right?
He is. And Doug, I mean, like I sent this to my producer because he always wants a screenshot, or not a screenshot, but he wants an image that we could utilize for YouTube and Spreaker and everything where we're putting this podcast out. And I was like, I should submit Michael Pittman because I knew you and I were going to have a conversation about Michael Pittman today. I'm like, God, if I submit this for Michael Pittman on a night when Ferrell isn't here, Ferrell would never come back to this podcast 100%. So I had to pick something else.
So with Downs, I didn't draft Downs. I saw him available, I think week 6 in Fab. And I thought he was too good. And especially when I have Pittman there, I'm like thinking, he has a little bit of an injury history a little bit. So I was like, hey, I'm going to try to bid on Downs and get him on my lineup for depth. And I probably overbid. I think I put 300 on him and he went, the next bid was like 20 maybe. And so I got him and that's what I had him, but he's depth right now. There's one league I have them both playing the same, which is not ideal, but I have them both playing because of the bye week stuff. And so not in this event, but in another one, I have them both playing at the exact same time, which is not optimal. And you had mentioned earlier, Daniel Jones is not a great option this weekend. I'm not sure these Berlin games, these overseas games always got kind of weird. And so, but yeah, that's why I have Downs on there. And you kind of went to the Chiefs. As you can probably tell, I'm a big Chiefs fan. Like I said, Missouri, Missouri grew up. And so when I went, and I kind of talked about earlier about getting offenses to have the potential. Mm-hmm. And the Chiefs were one of those teams. And the reason I thought that, it wasn't based on what they did last year, the year before, but they have been to 3 Super Bowls. Now, granted, that's a lot of it was because of their defense, but we've also had wide receivers, like MVS and Sky Moore, McCole Hardman and Kadarius Toney, and just on and on and on. He hasn't had, in my view, and what I understand, on paper, the receiving corps. Now, again, this is when I was before the season. When you're looking at it on paper, they haven't had a receiving crew like this. And I think in his career, back when he had Tyreek was obviously the number 1. He was the best. He's better than any of these guys. But their number 2, even back then, was Sammy Watkins. I would say he's probably the best number 2 he's had. But he had Pringle and DeMarcus Robinson. So he hasn't had – and he had a Kelsey who was like 5-6 years younger. So it's a little bit different there. But when you have, Rice, Worthy, Hollywood Brown, this is what it was all supposed to be at the beginning of last year, and everything kind of fell apart. Hollywood got hurt in preseason. Rice got hurt game 5. Worthy was a rookie. Andy never really plays his rookies unless he really has to, and he had to with Worthy, and he didn't really start doing anything until the end of last year. But Juju, when they won a Super Bowl against the Eagles, Juju was arguably their number 1 receiver. He's number 4 or 5 on this team. So that was my thought process going in. I drafted this main event team after Rice got suspended. So going through my draft board, I went into it wanting to get Mahomes. I saw his ADP was like 7th, 8th round normally. And I was kind of like, I mean, a couple of years ago, before all this downturn, he was getting picked up there with Josh Allen. He was getting picked up with the Lamar. Mm-hmm. I just felt that getting him, if I could get him at 7th round. So when I go into these drafts, I was just taking a chance that he would last that long. And so in this one specifically, I went Worthy 4th round because he was going to be their number one for the first 6 weeks. Now I wasn't, what's the thing? He's going to get hurt the first series of the year and be out. I mean, literally, I thought my season was sunk then because I thought he was gone for the year. The fact that he's come back, I still don't think he's really healthy, and he's been a disappointment. But then you have, I had a chance at the 6th pick. I almost picked Mahomes at the 6th pick. Rice was there, and I was like, before I knew he was going to get suspended this year, just didn't know if it was going to be middle of the year. But he's going to be their number one. He was and it's proved to be the point. He's number one. So I got him 6th, and then I got Mahomes on the 7th. So, and then I picked Hollywood in the 13th, and that free look saved me because Hollywood went for 10 catches and 100 yards that first game, and Worthy got hurt. So I was able to put him in and won that week, primarily because of Hollywood Brown, who was a 13th round pick. So thank you for doing the free look, by the way. But
you're welcome.
Well, that's where my kind of Chiefs fandom, there is a lot of homerism in that. But I also think Mahomes, if he's on, he has the other part of it too is the Bills game kind of gave me a little bit, worried going forward. But if he has linemen that can, will keep him upright, he's going to find the receivers. He's proved that over time.
All right. So a few things here I want to bring up. Number one, in regards to you having the top 2 receivers on Kansas City and the top 2 receivers in Indianapolis on this same team, this 11th place overall team, the way you explained it, I don't know, Doug, kind of seems like dumb luck, right? You did not focus on either of these positions to try to ascertain like the top 2 receivers on Kansas City, the top 2 receivers on Indianapolis. It just kind of worked out that way, right?
Yeah. I mean, for the most part, I mean, I kind of knew Rice and Worthy would going to be, I thought Worthy be more, giving me more production as he hasn't really given me help. He hasn't really helped me that much. If anything, he's hurt me. I've lost the last couple of weeks because he's not done very well. But yeah, that was kind of my thinking going. It doesn't always work, and it may not work going forward. If Kansas City looks like they did against Buffalo, I'm not going to be 11th very much longer. And this weekend, I had to scramble this weekend because they're all on bye. So,
we have a question on YouTube right now. Our good friend Ray C, piping in. T-Mac might be out this week. Tez Johnson or Malik Washington. Now, the latest we have on T-Mac, aka Teteroa McMillan, is that it was, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, I think it was a midweek downgrade on Teteroa McMillan. He had a hamstring injury that caused him to pop up on Carolina's Friday injury report. He is questionable against the New Orleans Saints this week. Dave Newton, who covers the Carolina Panthers, wrote, after practice today, Dave Canales, quote, told reporters there is concern after the injury popped up today. And obviously we hate these midweek, late week injury additions to the injury report. And certainly Teteroa McMillan, if he is out, this is going to cause shockwaves, not only throughout the Carolina Panthers offense, maybe the New Orleans defense as well. Okay, so Racy wants to know, McMillan might be out this week. If McMillan is out, should Ray be starting Tez Johnson against the New England Patriots, or should Ray be going against, or should Ray be dealing, being in business with Malik Washington, who is at home against the Bills for Miami?
Yeah, like you said, having that midweek injury is never a good sign. I highly doubt. I would think and I'm in Tucson, and that's where he went to Arizona. So I'm a big fan of T-Mac. I mean, it's just he was a stud here, and hate to see him get hurt. I would say, and this might be a little teaser for later, I like Malik Washington. I think the game script on both are going to be there, but I think that Buffalo Miami game might be high scoring, and so I do like Malik Washington a little bit better than Tej, but I wouldn't say significantly amount. I mean, I hope I'd have someone else to be able to put in there, but during bye weeks, you may not. So, but yeah, I actually like Malik Washington. He's one of my surprise guys that I think was going to have a pretty good week.
I checked to the razor on stuff like this on the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour. I'm not going to disagree with our guest because our guest has gotten himself up into 11th place overall in the FFPC Main Event. So I am not going to go out and say you are wrong. This is not the way I would. No, I'm not going to do that. But I will say this. In regards to these two, what Racy is bringing up tonight, 48.5 total on that Patriots-Buccaneers game. Granted, Tampa is a 2.5-point favorite, so it might be a negative game script for Tez Johnson. You ask me Saturday morning, I might say, no, I'm not going to play Tez Johnson. I'm going to play Malik Washington. Right now, I lean towards Tez Johnson over Washington. I could be wrong on this. And by and large, if history's any guide here, Doug, you are normally in the right here. Like the guest is normally the guy who is making the correct call on this. So I will say, by and large, I think you're going to be right. But if you're asking me in a vacuum, I like Tez Johnson a little bit.
It's a tough call. I mean, it's a really tough call. And the Tua factor is a big thing. I'd rather have Mayfield throwing to me than Tua. So it was just a spur of the moment. You're asking me that question right now, but I might have a different answer Sunday if I really researched it and kind of went.
That's the thing. We're doing the show on Friday night, right? Things can change. Like Saturday morning, we could have a different answer. Saturday afternoon, Saturday night, Sunday morning, we could have a different answer when it comes to this as well, because it is that razor close right now. I want to bring this up. You're living in Arizona. You're a Chiefs fan. Do you feel like your fandom dictated the fact that you went so heavy on guys like Mahomes, Marquise Brown, Rashee Rice, Travis Kelce, all these Chiefs? Do you think that was more of like a fandom thing? Or did you feel like because you were a Chiefs fan, you knew about this offense, you knew about the schedule, you knew about what was going to happen in 2025, and you're like, I got to load up on these Chiefs this year? This is always something I would like to bring up because obviously if you're a fan of a team and they're going to score points, you're going to be drafting a bunch of them. You drafted a bunch of them. Was it just as simply as like, hey, I love Mahomes, I love the Chiefs, they're going to do numbers this year, I'm going to load up on them? Or was this a more nuanced decision for you, Doug?
It's a little bit of both. I mean, the homer, like I mentioned earlier, the homerism does kind of factor into it. But, I listen to a lot of during the off season, listening to a lot of podcasts. So I'm actually spending a lot of time listening to Chiefs podcasts more than other teams. So that was part of it, is I got more information that I felt was valid. And a lot of that stuff is a bunch of fluff. But I just felt Mahomes was going to have one of those years. And I actually thought it was going to be a better year than it is. But like I think if Worthy doesn't get hurt that first game, I think it's a whole I mean, I think they probably have lost some games, but I think their offense is clicking more than we're seeing right now. I think we had a couple games in the past that were showing what I think is going to be after the bye. I think we're going to see, and I'm hoping we'll see some more fireworks. But yeah, I mean, Rice, I saw enough of Rice last year that I think he was number one receiver, and I'm getting him in the 6th round, that value. I'm not going to pass on that. Hollywood was just basically, he served his use. He's off my team now. So I'm really I had no interest in any of the running backs. I didn't draft. I don't think I drafted Pacheco anywhere. I do have Hunt that got like real late, and he's kind of worked out. He's getting goal line touches. And, but yeah, the main thing was I wanted Mahomes. And then if I could get the other parts, great, but I wanted Mahomes.
And it has certainly paid out so far this year. As far as the pass catchers and the other ancillary guys that you had mentioned there, was there one guy that you liked better than the others, or it didn't make a difference? You just
Rice. I wanted Rice. Rice. I was ecstatic. Now I will say this. I did my other main event before he got suspended, and he was going like 3rd or 4th round. I didn't want him in 3rd or 4th round because I knew he was going to get suspended. I don't want to waste a 3rd rounder in my mind for a guy that is going to be gone 6 games. And there's never a guarantee you might lose a guy injury, but I knew that he was going to get suspended for a certain, probably the rumor was 6 to 10 games. So yep. I was worried about that. But once he did get suspended 6 games, and then seeing him come around in the 6th round, it was a no doubter for me compared to what was on the board at that point. And I can't remember exactly who was on the board, but I actually did look yesterday, and I'm glad I made that call. And I think he's going to pay off for me. I'm in 11th place, and I've really only got 2 games from Rashee Rice. So
it's true.
I'm hoping.
How exciting how exciting is that for you?
Yeah.
You know, like knowing that you were this close to the top of the leaderboard, and one of your main cogs on this team really has only played 2 weeks for you. I mean, I only bring this up because I play in Ferrell's Kentucky Fantasy Football State Championship, and one of the leagues, or one of the teams that I have on that, is it's moved up to top 40. I don't think we're in the top 30, but Rashee Rice is on that team with the guy, my buddy Jim, who I co-own that team with. And we're very excited about this team, knowing what Rice is capable of, knowing what the Chiefs offense is capable of. And if you have him on your team, I don't want to say it's a cheat code, but God, it's so much fun looking at those scores every week, knowing that you have Rice on that team, dude.
Well, and I have JSN, and JSN's the top of the line.
Oh my God. It's not, let's shut it down now. This is insane.
Yeah. So, I mean, Pittman, like I said, JSN, Pittman, Rice, and if Worthy, you know, I'm going to have a hard time taking Worthy out. He's going to have one of these breakout games, and I have him and Wan'Dale Robinson. I always have to kind of think about who I'm going to do. I want that ceiling, and I think you have a bigger ceiling with Worthy. I'm going to have that good floor with Wan'Dale, but that ceiling with Worthy, he could come out with 2 touchdown, 150-yard game any game. He hasn't yet. And I'm starting to get a little worried about it. But, you know, again, that might be my homerism a little bit. And maybe everybody else saying, you know, you got to play Wan'Dale and get those consistent 10 to 13 points.
Right.
But I kind of think a little bit differently, especially when it gets to week 15, 17. If I'm still in it, I'm probably going to put Worthy in there. Now, God willing, there's no other injuries or anything like that where I have to, you know, but yeah, that I love Rice, and to get him in the 6th round. And he's there. Mahomes loves him. And how many targets he have against the Raiders? He only had like 30 snaps, and he had like 15 targets or something like that.
Right.
So it's not going to get worse. It's going to, if anything, it's going to get better.
We got Tommy Island chiming in right now. Tommy Heron, who I think is like 4th or 5th overall in the FFPC Big Gorilla right now. He says Rashee Rice and the Jackson Smith and Jigba combo is a league-winning combo. He says winning and winking. So I get it. Like, listen, typos happen.
Week 10, it looks good. I just hope it works good in 15 through 17.
Yeah, you know, exactly. You know, we bring up Smith and Jigba. Cooper Kupp is on that team. Cooper Kupp was a big signing by Seattle in the offseason. The Seahawks very excited to get Kupp aboard. They still did draft Torrey Horton, and now they have traded a 4th and a 5th round pick to the New Orleans Saints to get Rashid Shaheed aboard. Listen, I don't want to put words in your mouth. I don't know what your plans are for Sunday. And quite frankly, I haven't looked at your team, Doug, since Wednesday night. The waivers went off. Why is Cooper Kupp, or why is not Cooper Kupp, worth keeping around on your FFPC roster after Shaheed moves from New Orleans to Seattle?
I'm not sure he's going to be depth, if anything. I don't have a lot of Kupp. With Shaheed going on there, it's going to be 2 receiver sets with JSN. I actually was thinking about how this would affect JSN. It's going to take a lot of double coverage away. I mean, I think Shaheed's going to get targets that maybe just JSN would get normally, but I also think it's going to take the double coverage away that was going to come with JSN because they didn't have a lot of people there. To be honest with you, I think Kupp, I would rather have Torrey Horton. I know Torrey Horton's pretty doubtful this weekend, and Kupp's questionable too, but going forward, I would rather have Torrey Horton more than Kupp because I think they're going to keep Horton in there. I think his big playability, but I also think they're going to do 2 wide receiver sets, and you're going to see them lean a little bit more. We were talking about Daniel Jones. I think Sam Darnold may come back to earth a little bit. Hopefully he doesn't, but I think he might, and they're going to depend on those 2 running backs, just like we were talking about Taylor in Indianapolis. So I think you're going to see a lot of 2 receiver sets. And then you're going to see Charbonnet and Walker, there's going to be some pounding the ball there too. So I don't think people should be excited about keeping Cooper Kupp the rest of the year. I mean, if you have another alternative, I think he could be placed on waivers. I mean, he's been questionable anyway, so I don't know, was it a hamstring? I don't know, but yeah, I'm not real pumped about Cooper Kupp.
And another reason to not be pumped up about Cooper Kupp. As you know, he's dealing with an injury right now, and this is less than a week after the Seahawks trade for Rashid Shaheed from the Saints. The latest we got this on the show tonight, Mike Duger is reporting that Cooper Kupp is officially questionable to play against the Cardinals in Week 10. He's dealing with a heel injury. He's also dealing with a hamstring injury. Now, he did get a full practice in today, and it was limited for him on Wednesday, limited for him on Thursday. And I think this signs pointing up for Kupp that he's going to play. But Doug, to your point, if he's active, God, I still really don't want to be in the business with Cooper Kupp in Week 10. And quite frankly, this could be a slow burn where we see Rashid Shaheed out there more and more. We see Torrey Horton out there more and more. JJ Zachariason, I think it was JJ Zachariason that talked about this over the course of the last 2 days. The Seattle Seahawks are one of the last teams in the NFL to run plays with 3 wide receivers out there. In other words, if you're talking about you believe in 3 of these receivers for Seattle, whether that's, Smith-Njigba, Kupp, and Horton, Smith-Njigba, Horton, and Shaheed, Smith-Njigba, Shaheed, and Kupp, well, whatever it is, they rarely run 3 wide receiver sets. Now, maybe that could change now with the Shaheed trade, but so far hasn't happened. And I think you need to, quote unquote, go with God on what you're doing with Seattle receivers that are not named Jackson Smith-Njigba going forward. Okay. James Cook. Let's talk about him here, Doug. I believe, and I have to look this up right now, I believe he is going to be good to go this week for the Bills.
Yep, he is.
He is?
Yep. They said he's good to go. Yep.
Okay. So
exact same words I saw. So
perfect. So now we know for Week 10, you want to be playing Cook. However, he is dealing with an injury. They're dependent upon what happens in Week 10. There's a non-zero chance that he may not be available in Week 11. This is something I know a lot of FFPC players are weighing against right now. If Cook misses, what do you do? And if Cook is not available to play, who's the running back you want to roster? Is it Ty Johnson? Is it Ray Davis? Johnson's been getting a lot of the action. However, if we know going into a week that Cook is not going to play, I got to believe Buffalo is going to be trotting Ray Davis out there. This is something that we need to break down here, because a lot of people, if they have Cook or even if they don't have Cook, they may not have the roster spot to roster both Davis and Johnson. What would you be doing right now in FFPC leagues as far as the Buffalo backup running back, who is one injury away from having a significant role for the Bills?
Yeah, I drafted Davis in this team, and I got impatient and I've dropped him. I kind of wish I would have kept him now. I do have him in other leagues where I'm handcuffing Cook. I kind of keep pointing back to last year when I think Cook missed 1 or 2 games, and there was one game, and I was playing against a guy who had Davis in, and I think he went for 20 carries and 100 yards. If they're going to give the same amount of work to one of the running backs, I think it's going to be Davis, because he's not the third down back. Now, it also will depend on game script. So if they're playing a game where the run game is going to be prevalent, then I think I would want Davis. But if you're playing a team, it's going to be a shootout and there's not going to be much running in it, you kind of have to predict. But I think you'd have to look at the games. But just speaking on Friday night, and if he was out for this Sunday, I would rather have Davis. And I proved that because I've kind of handcuffed Cook with Davis in some of my other leagues.
If you did not have James Cook in any of these leagues that we're talking about, Doug, and you had an open roster spot, right? Like there was no other better place or no other better way to utilize that empty roster spot. Ray Davis is a free agent in that league. Ty Johnson is a free agent in that league. All those things considered, would you be picking up Ray Davis over Ty Johnson?
I probably would, yes.
Okay. I want to get into Garrett Wilson. This is affecting me in a couple of leagues in the KFFSC that Ferrell runs, obviously. Garrett Wilson has not played in the last couple of weeks. He says he's going to be good to go on Sunday, which is great if you have Garrett Wilson on your team. However, his first game back is at home against the Cleveland Browns, which has been a pretty tough defense. We believe that Justin Fields is going to be the starting quarterback in this game. We don't know officially. We just think that. When you consider everything going on in your high-stakes leagues in the FFPC right now, if you did own Garrett Wilson, do you have to find a way to get him in your starting lineup, or are you not breaking your back to try to get him deployed in your starting lineups in Week 10?
I think you made some valid points. Normally, I kind of shy away from people coming back from injury, and when you especially have the quarterback situation there, and the fact that like you said, they're playing the Browns, who's really strong. Wilson's not one of my top plays. I know he's kind of up there ranked, and I think it's more of name, and he's going to get the target share. But I honestly would go somewhere like Jameson Williams, Shakur, who guys are lower rated but have more upside in the game script that they're going to be in. I honestly have Wilson in one of my leagues. I have to play him because I really have no better alternatives. But if you have if you have a guys like I just mentioned down a little bit lower, I would play them. I have no problem playing them because I'm not real confident in Wilson. One, he has the injury and it could be 2 plays. And the whole Jet situation is kind of odd right now with everything going on. So, the only good thing is he would get the targets. He'd probably get 20 targets, but we've seen him get that many targets and Justin Fields can't hit him. And I don't even know who's starting, if it's going to be Tyrod or Justin, because they're both.
We don't know.
Yeah,
we think it's going to be Fields, but you're right. We don't know on that.
If they were playing the Bengals, I would definitely have him in. But playing the Browns, I just avoid it if I can.
I think that it's tempting to have him in. I own him in one league across, 7 dozen or whatever teams I have this year. And it's a dynasty league. And I am playing him because I don't have another good option, but I feel awful about it. Like, I don't feel great about starting Garrett Wilson this week, and I don't think anybody should. Now,
that goes back to my point that I talked about earlier, is when I was doing these main event drafts, especially, I didn't want to draft guys from the Jets, the Browns, and I don't have him in any of my main events. And this is pretty much the reason why. I tried to get teams that I know were going to have powerful offenses. I know they thought maybe Fields would have a huge year, but I wasn't one of those. I like Wilson as a receiver. I wish the Chiefs would have traded for him in the offseason, but he's kind of a prisoner in my mind.
Doug, can you imagine a team in Kansas City that would have traded for Garrett Wilson in the offseason to have him aboard, and then at the trade deadline, traded for Breece Hall from the Jets? The Jets would be set up well for the next half decade, and maybe this would be bad for people who are fans of the NFL, but Kansas City would be loaded for bear. Whoever is coming at him in the AFC, who's ever coming at him out of the NFC in the Super Bowl, it would have been a lot of fun for fantasy-wise. But if you're sick of the Chiefs winning, that would have happened a lot.
Breece Hall and the Chiefs would have. I was kind of hoping that was going to happen. I think that would have helped Mahomes. I think it would have helped the offense just having a running back there. Even if he would have got more carries. But Andy doesn't like to run the ball anyways. But Breece Hall would have helped Chiefs greatly. And I actually picked up when Braylon Allen got hurt. I picked up Isaiah Davis in a lot of places, and I was thinking that Hall was going to get traded. My other main event league, I have Isaiah Davis, hoping Breece Hall would get traded, and I just don't get the Jets thinking there. They traded those 2 other guys out of the blue, but they don't trade a guy they have no control of after this year. It makes no sense.
Listen, after they traded Quinnen Williams, after they traded Sauce Gardner, I thought it was a foregone conclusion at that point.
Yeah.
That Breece Hall was not necessarily that he was going to be a Chief, but that he wouldn't be on the Jets. And they kept him, which boggles my mind given the state of that franchise and given the state of his contract. But listen, they know more than me, so I leave it at that. All right. I want to bring up this insane. I'll bring this up right now. And nobody cares about me, but I'm going to bring it up right now. I was at the Packers-Panthers game, Doug, at Lambeau Field. I live in Northeast Wisconsin. I went to that game. I'm a season ticket holder. It was great until it wasn't. And then Carolina won the game. I went to a brewery after the game within walking distance of Lambeau Field. And I was sitting there. I placed my order. I was waiting for my beer, and the place erupted. And I was like, what is going on? I looked at the screen, and Colston Loveland was busting this mind-bending play to win the game for the Bears over the Bengals. And I didn't realize that it was 47-42. Like, it was an insane offensive performance from both teams. You know, you look at Cincinnati with T. Higgins, 7 for $121 and 2 touchdowns. Jamar Chase went over 111 yards. Chase Brown had 8 catches for 75 yards. You look at the Bears side of it. Colston Loveland, 6 for 118 and 2 touchdowns. For God's sake, DJ Moore threw a touchdown in this game. Caleb Williams threw for the better part of 300 yards and 3 touchdowns as well. And then I perused this box score a little bit more closely. Rome Odunze, 3 targets, 0.0 catches. Fat, drunk, and stupid is no way to go through life, son. And he dropped 2 of his targets as well.
Had one in the end zone too.
And one was in the end zone. You're right. In a game where the Bears lose, or beg your pardon, in the game where the Bears win 47-42, and Rome Odunze puts up a blanking bagel, is this a sign of things to come? Or are you washing your hands of this, saying, Balky, it's a one-off, this is not going to happen again? I'm a little confused on how I should feel about Rome Odunze when I'm submitting my lineups for week 10. How do you feel about it?
Yeah, I had the same feeling a week earlier with Jake Ferguson. He had a 0.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but I think Odunze, the whole Caleb factor is I do have Odunze in a couple of places, and I love him. I think this was a one-off. I think he's going to get his targets. I think Caleb, I think this week, especially because it's another game similar to that kind of game script. The Giants don't have much of a D, so this could be a game where I see him go for 8 catches, 140 yards, and a touchdown. I like Rome Odunze. I think he's going to be I don't think I think that's a one-off. I mean, you're going to have those every once in a while, but I think he's going to be pretty solid the rest of the period. The other thing, too, is his dad popped off. I don't know if you saw that, but his dad popped off. And don't they say with the squeaky wheel, whatever that
it's the grease. It gets the grease
or something? Yeah, so I could I don't know what it is about like Caleb Williams' dad a couple years ago popped off, and now we have a Odunze dad pop off. So I think they would probably work on, if he was playing the Browns, I may not think he's going to have a good weekend, but I think the Giants, this game's set up for another shootout. And I honestly, if they score another 40 points and he has, I may be wrong. I just don't think he's going to, I think he'll have 10 points at least. And I would hope he'd have more than that. I hope he'd be like 8 catches and a touchdown somewhere, because I thought he got hurt. I literally, when I saw the box scores, I wasn't watching the game. I was, watching parts of it. I thought he got hurt or something. I was like, what happened? But yeah, I think that was a one-off, in my opinion, at least.
In regards to Odunze in this game against Cincinnati, he had been battling both ankle and heel injuries, and he was battling it this week as well. He's not on the final injury report, so he's going to be good to go against the Giants this week. If you look back at everything the Bengals defense has accomplished this year, it's been very little, right? But one of the shining players that we've seen on this team has been DJ Turner, who is the number 1 corner for Cincinnati. And he was on Rome Odunze a lot this game. And he has been on other number 1 receivers a lot when the Bengals have gone up against him. So I think that if you look by and large, the number 1 receivers that have gone against the Bengals this year, it's been kind of clunkers for them. And Odunze is no stranger to that. So I am willing to give him a pass. I only own him in 2 leagues this year, and I'm going to be playing him wholeheartedly in both leagues in week 10 this year for sure. Okay, I want to get into Tom Smith's question on YouTube. I threw it up on the screen here right now for us. Doug, would you play Jerry Jeudy over Garrett Wilson this week? I'll say this right now.
Option C?
So you don't want to play either one. You're staying away from both of them.
Yeah. In that case, I'd probably play Wilson.
I would too. I am of the opinion, and I don't know how you feel about this, but Jerry Jeudy was a player that absolutely crushed after his trade last season. And I don't have a good explanation for why he has sucked so much this year. Is it quarterback? Is it offense? Is it opposing or not opposing? Is it the cast around him? I don't know. But I am, and maybe this is unfair, and maybe I shouldn't be doing this, Doug. But going forward, I'm going to be very wary of not drafting players like Jerry Jeudy, who make this transition or all of a sudden just take off the second half of a season where I'm drafting them in round 6, round 7, round 8 the following year. I don't have a good explanation on why this guy has stunk this year, but I do know, maybe subconsciously, maybe wrongly, I'm going to be penalizing players like him in 2026 drafts where I will not be drafting players like Jerry Jeudy. Your thoughts?
I agree 100%. I didn't draft Jeudy anywhere. And again, it's come down to I just didn't like the quarterback situation. I mean, they traded their best quarterback to the Bengals. But, I know Jeudy went off last year. I didn't believe it, and I didn't draft him anywhere. And it could have came back to haunt me. I've caught other receivers that have been just as bad, and I drafted them all over the place. But I'm not a big fan of Jeudy. I probably never will be. He's, especially in that offense. If you put him in a better offense, maybe. But in that offense, I'm not. The only ones I'd be interested there are the tight ends. That's in Judkins, obviously. But
yeah, well, let's talk about this real quick. The latest we've received on Harold Fannin, the game status as this came out about 8 hours ago. Mary Kay Cabot for the Cleveland Plain Dealer reported this, that Harold Fannin is listed as questionable for the game against the Jets this week. Now, this game is going to go off at 1 p.m. Eastern time, I believe. I should check on this just to make sure before I'm leading people astray on this. It is a 1 p.m. kickoff. When you look at Fannin, if he misses this game, does David Njoku become a must start in FFPC tight end premium leagues? Or are you more on Jerry Jeudy? Are you more on Isaiah Bond? Are you more on, I don't know if Cedric Tillman is going to be activated in time for this.
Tillman's game. Back, Bond's out.
Okay, so there you go. So knowing what we know about Fannin, and I haven't seen the practice report today, but knowing what we know about him leading up to this, who's the Cleveland pass catcher that we need to start in Week 10?
Yeah, I think if Fannin's out, I'm not looking at the receivers. I'm looking at Njoku because Gillen Gabriel has been throwing more of the tight ends. I mean, both Fannin and Njoku, but they both have been getting action. And if you take one of them out, especially in a tight end premium, the one, 1.5 per, he's at least a flex for me. And depending on who your other tight end is, he may be your tight end.
Right.
So I like Fannin too. If they both, even if they both played, I would almost, I would consider Njoku. So, and Fannin.
I think you're right. And I think that the other thing that we have to consider here, and when we talk about the Browns, is somebody has to move this football down the field. Yes, Quinshon Judkins is probably going to play a big role in it, but he can't play the entire role. And if he doesn't play the entire role, we have to look at some of these other players. And I think Njoku is at the top of my list. If Harold Fannin does not play, hamstring injury, I should look it up right now, but I know he did not practice yesterday. I don't think he practiced today. But what did you say, Doug, that he is out officially?
Who?
Fannin. Harold Fannin's out officially.
I think he's questionable. I think they say he's questionable. I haven't heard anything else. I actually thought Njoku was going to get traded to your team.
Green Bay. No, they would never do that. And I'm going to tell you why they would never do that. Green Bay operates the same way as every sports team in Wisconsin operates, where it is we will ask questions. There's a lot of, like Jerry Jones, right? Shoot first, ask questions later. Like it is the opposite for the Brewers, the Packers, the Badgers, everybody in Wisconsin. They will ask a zillion questions and then fire. So there was no question to me that Green Bay was not making any moves. If there was any move that the Packers are going to make at the deadline, it was going to be that they would trade a player in order to acquire draft picks going forward, especially when you consider that they traded the 2 first-rounders to Dallas for Micah Parsons. I never really thought that they were giving up any kind of draft capital to get a tight end or pass catcher or whatever. And I'll say this, and I should ask you about this, Doug. I think part of the reason, a huge part of the reason that Green Bay would not do that, I really think they like Luke Musgrave quite a bit. I think that they believe that the lack of Tucker Kraft in this offense is going to be stemmed quite a bit, not totally, but stemmed quite a bit by Luke Musgrave coming into this offense. Now, I'm not here to tell you that the Packers believe that Musgrave is on the same level as Kraft. I don't think anybody could say that at this point. But I do know that this is a team that was very high on Musgrave at the point when they drafted him in the second round 3 years ago, as opposed to Tucker Kraft in that same draft, who they drafted in the third round. And when you look at Musgrave, I think there is a lot to like about him. My big, and I'll put this out there right now, my big question on Luke Musgrave, as far as the Packers go, fantasy goes, whatever, it's not can he put up big numbers for Green Bay. I know he can. 100% I know he can. The question for me, and it has always been this question for Musgrave, can he stay on the field? Because if he stays on the field, he's going to be very, very good. If he can't stay on the field, well, whatever. As Paul Giamatti would say in The Hangover Part 2, that's Bangkok. Bangkok has him now. And I don't believe that that's going to be playing a role. I don't believe he'll play a role, obviously, in this team if he can't stay on the field. But if he is healthy, I really like Luke Musgrave here, Doug.
Oh, he was going higher in drafts his rookie year. I mean, I picked him, a lot, and I loved him. I actually tried to get him this week in Fab. I got outbid, but when he, like you said, he got drafted ahead of Kraft into the same draft, and then in the fantasy drafts he was getting picked. So he was really popular, and like you said, the injuries kind of derailed him a little bit. But yeah, he's always produced when he's been there. I like him. That's why I thought maybe they'd get Njoku, but I know Musgrave is. He's nothing to sneeze about.
Yeah. And at least when they tested athletically in that 2023 draft or whatever it was, Musgrave tested better athletically than Tucker Kraft. And it's weird because, you like watch the Packers play on national TV or whatever, and Tucker Kraft will get tackled and he does the Shawn Michaels WWE kip up. And it's like, how is this guy not as athletic as Luke Musgrave? It makes no sense because this guy looks unbelievable, but it is what it is. Okay. Final question for you tonight, my friend. I have to ask you here, if there is a player, a well-respected player, a player that is going to be started in a lot of FFPC leagues, FFPC Main Event, Big Gorilla, what have you. If there's a player that's going to be started in a lot of leagues, Doug, that you think should not be started, that should be on benches this week, who would that be? And then conversely, a player that you think a lot of FFPC players are going to keep on the bench for week 10, that they probably should be thinking hard about starting him this weekend. Who are those two players?
So Garrett Wilson was one we talked about earlier. He'd be the one I would say, but since we talked about him a lot, I'm going to give you another one. And again, I wouldn't put him on my bench, but I have a feeling these Berlin games, I think the games in Berlin always go kind of weird. And I just have a feeling Sauce Gardner being there is going to, I don't know what they're going to do, how much he's going to play, but I could see them saying, okay, we just want you to guard London and take him out of the game. So I could see London have a mediocre game, 3 catches, 45, 50 yards, and not get close to where you would hope he would get. So I'm not saying you can't start him. I think I would start him. I'm not that smart. I wish I could predict stuff like that. I probably wouldn't need to be in fantasy football, but I have a feeling he's going to be one of those. It's kind of hard to go through and say, okay, who do I take out, who do I not? But he would be one I think is going to very much underperform. And on the other side, and this may get me a lot of hate mail, and this week I'm having the same problem streaming quarter. Mahomes is on my bench a lot, and I had Stroud, and obviously he's not playing. So I either had Stroud or I had no one. Sometimes I just keep one quarterback because I'll figure it out whenever I get to the bye week. I picked Mariota up in a lot of places, but since then I might make some more bids this weekend. I actually like Tua. We talked about Malik Washington earlier. I think that's, and again, he might throw a pick or two in the first quarter and be on the bench for Quinn Ewers. But I just have a feeling that game script is going to – I know the Buffalo defense shut down Kansas City, and, they got a lot of pressure. But coming off that game, their defense I don't think's that strong. And I think there's a couple guys being out. So I think Tua could have a pretty productive game. I also like Schultz for Houston. Bowers went off on Jacksonville last week. Schultz is going to be dependent on with the backup quarterback there. You could also play him as a quarterback too. I think I'm not real impressed with Jacksonville's defense. Geno Smith, we just saw what Geno Smith did last night. He torched the Jacksonville last week. So I think Dalton Schultz is another person. I think, especially in a 1.5 point, PPR league. I think I love Schultz.
We got Tom Smith chiming in with Tagovailoa. Don't do it, Doug, with Tua Tagovailoa. He's saying don't do it. But I will say, to your point, that total is 50.5 in that Bills-Dolphins game. And the Dolphins are 9.5 point underdogs. That is a massive, we say negative game script, but really it's a positive game script for those people who are playing Tagovailoa in their starting lineup. So I totally get that. For certain on this. And you said, I beg your pardon on this, for players that you would sit, it was who again?
Well, Garrett Wilson for sure.
Wilson, yeah.
That was the one, but I kind of just brought up the London thing. I'm not going to sit in London. Okay. I'm not sitting in London, but I think he's going to underperform. I just have, another person, Vidal for the Chargers. I think honestly, he's probably needed to play, but I think the Steelers figured some things out last week against the Colts. They kind of shut down Taylor. I think the Chargers offensive line is going through a lot of stuff right now. So I think you're going to see a lot of short, quick passes from Herbert. I don't think Vidal, unless he gets some some catches. I think Jarrett Patterson may take some of those share. So I'm not big on Vidal this week.
That was what I was going to ask you. Did you pick up Jarrett Patterson in any of your leagues this week?
No, I didn't, but I seriously thought about it.
Okay. All right. So, and I put in for him. I knew I wasn't going to start him this week, so I haven't really looked closely if I picked him up, but I did put in for him in a bunch of leagues here. And, the other thing too, not that I want to dwell on this here, Doug, but the prevailing storyline I've heard from the Chargers is Jim Harbaugh saying that Omarion Hampton is expected to have his practice window opened up after their bye, which I think is in week 12, which would put the Hampton having his practice window open up in week 13. The thing of it is you have 3 weeks to activate a player after your practice window is open. So that means ostensibly, and I'm not saying that the Chargers would do this, but ostensibly, Hampton would be out week 13. He'd be out week 14. He'd be out week 15. And then maybe, just maybe, he'd come back for week 16. This is a bad situation for fantasy owners. I don't know if you have Hampton on any of your leagues, but to me, I think he's droppable at this point.
Yeah, I didn't draft him. It seemed like I never had the position early. Like I wasn't in that top of the first round. I was usually like 7, 8, 9, 10, and he never made it back to me on the second round. I also want to give you some flowers. Last week's show, you talked about Monangai and Swift, and you kind of predicted what was going to happen. And I think we're going to see, you predicted eventually, you think Monangai is going to be that top running back. I think that's happening. I think based on what he did last week,
I think the switch has happened. Monangai over Swift.
He's questionable now because of personal reasons, and I'm not trying to start gossip here or anything, but it makes me wonder if maybe he was told something. Monangai was impressive, and you had predicted that last week. Mm-hmm. The other thing that I haven't heard much, but Ben Johnson was the OC. He started OC in Detroit in 2022. They traded Swift to the Eagles in 23, so he didn't really like him in Detroit, obviously, and he's not his guy. Monangai, they drafted him, so I honestly, I have Swift in my other main event league. I'm kind of worried about this. I actually thought, the Sauce Gardner thing was kind of out of the blue. I actually thought he might get traded. I thought I know they like the 2 running backs thing, especially Ben Johnson.
Yeah.
But I had a feeling for some reason that Swift might get traded, or might be on the trade block because his value is pretty high. But I think they really like Monangai, and he's proven, that's, if Swift doesn't play tonight or this weekend, which he may not. He came out questionable for personal reasons today, didn't practice today. Monangai comes out there and does what he did last week, I think it's going to be a 60. You had said it last week, I believe, a 60-40 split. Now, you might have said 60 on Swift, but I think you were saying you were leaning towards Monangai, and I think that's what's going to happen.
The thing is with Monangai, for a lot of the points you just raised, like he was drafted by Ben Johnson. Like Swift was already traded by a Ben Johnson OC-led team, right? And now you have Swift this week. Now, this is coming from the Bears official X account earlier this afternoon. Swift is, as you pointed out, Doug, officially questionable with groin/personal issues. Now, if that's not, there's a myriad of jokes we could get into with Swift battling groin/personal issues. But he was limited in practice, beg your pardon, on Wednesday. And then he got in a full practice on Thursday, and then no practice on Friday. This is like unprecedented. We don't see limited, full, nothing. That just doesn't happen. So let's just say, for the sake of argument here, that Swift, he solves his personal issue, whatever it is. He's ready to go on Sunday against the Giants. Are both Swift and Monangai startable, or at least flexible in FFPC leagues where you're battling, where you can have, two positional players, running back, receiver, tight end at flex? Are both these guys startable or flexible in that sense?
I think so. I mean, Ben Johnson's proved that he can use two running backs. He used Gibbs and Montgomery. I'm not comparing those two, but Monangai, I think he's going to get more of the share, especially this weekend, because especially Swift didn't practice today. So,
right.
I think Monangai is going to get most of the work Sunday, even if Swift's active. But yeah, I think they're both. I have Swift. I'm not benching him. I have Isaiah Davis or Swift. If he's active, I'm playing him. So I just take the chance. He may get 5 points, but he also could get a touchdown. I'm just trying to get touchdowns here out of those running backs. But I tell you what, I think Monangai is I didn't draft him and I didn't pick him up when I could have. I'm kind of kicking myself over that because, there was a lot of stuff about him, but I picked up Rashawn Johnson. I picked up the wrong one, but
you and me both. You and me both.
But yeah, he looked. Now again, it was the Bengals. It's one defense, and like you talked about DJ Turner, their defense, their run game defense is not. They don't have anybody like that to stop anybody. But I like Monangai. And this weekend's a juice. If Swift doesn't play, Monangai is probably a top 8 or 9 running back in my mind.
Yeah, I think the thing that we have to keep in mind, he played the Bengals last week. He crushed it, 198 total yards from scrimmage, and I get it. It was Cincinnati. But at the same time, there was no DeAndre Swift. And I don't care who you're going against. If you don't have the number one running back or at least the 1A, 1B running back in that offense, it's going to be a big week, regardless if you're playing against the Purple People Eaters, the Steel Curtain. It's going to happen. Like you got to get this guy at least as a flex in your lineup. So I like Monangai this week if Swift doesn't play for sure. Doug, I apologize. I am just looking at the clock right now. I would love to keep talking. We could easily do 3 hours tonight. We can't because it is 13 minutes past the top of the hour. My kids got a sleepover tonight. I got to put them to bed. But in the future, I would love to have you back on. We can talk about how you're winning the $1 million in the FFPC main event this year. I'd love to talk about so much more with you. Until then, we will have to continue to follow you on X at dhaines71. Doug, thank you so much for hopping on.
I appreciate it. It was an honor.
Co-hosting.
It was an honor. Thank you for the invite.
Absolutely. You did great. Good luck, not only this week, but going forward as well. Thank you so much for making your Friday night or making the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour a part of your Friday night, man. Good luck the rest of the way.
Thank you. Thanks for everybody listening.
Absolutely. That is Doug Haines, ladies and gentlemen, the 11th place team owner in the FFPC main event. So good to have him on tonight, filling in for Ferrell, who is on assignment out of the country. I want to thank not only Doug Haines tonight, I want to thank the FFPC, Rob, Bryce, and of course, each and every one of you. We will be back next Friday night, 10 p.m. Eastern time, week 9 FFPC main event third place team owner, Vinny Bonta, is going to join the show. That's going to be very exciting when we talk to Vinny next Friday night at 10 p.m. Eastern. In case you missed the RotoViz High Stakes Lowdown this week, one of my favorite guests came on, Kurt Kikas, a top 10 owner in the FFPC Big Gorilla. He and I chopped it up. He actually talked about how he's kicking my rear end in one of our private dynasty leagues that we're in as well. So if you want to check that out, do so at the FFPC socials. Of course, the RotoViz podcast channel as well. You can listen to it there. Next week, we will be talking with Dave Scioto, who has a top 30 team in the FFPC main event. Dave makes his return to the RotoViz High Stakes Lowdown 10 p.m. Eastern time this coming Tuesday. Now, if you missed the Insider Access show brought to you by the FFPC on the Better Sports Network this past Thursday, you can watch it again, any of the FFPC socials, the Better Sports Network, bettersports.com, or the Better Sports Network YouTube channels. I had the 2016 FFPC main event co-champion Nelson Sousa on. Of course, you know all of his work from FTN, fantasy.com, and he is one of the co-hosts of the Fantasy Empire podcast on the Player Profiler Fantasy Sports Network, Fantasy Podcast Network. Check that out when you can at the FFPC socials, of course, bettersportsnetwork.com. We will be back next Thursday on that show, 7 p.m. Eastern time, with Rotoballer's Casey Kasem. So that is what we're setting up for next week. We got Dave Scioto on Tuesday. We have Casey Kasem on Thursday. And then we have Vinny Bonta on Friday next week. The FFPC Weekly Challenge is live right now. Sign up now. No draft, no salary cap. Just pick 10 players or 12 players if you want to go with kickers and defenses. Win up to $2,500. 10, 30, and 100-team contests. Only one player per NFL team. myffpc.com. That's myffpc.com. Remember to like this video, subscribe to the channel, comment on the video, share with your friends, share with your enemies, and get notified each and every time we go live. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. Your weekend officially starts now.
This has been another episode of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by myffpc.com. It was broadcast live and was watched around the world. Balky and Ferrell will be back next week with more analysis, more interviews, and more advice from guests much smarter than they are. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk with you again next week.
Just want to remind everybody, and I feel so bad about this. There is a 9:30 a.m. Eastern Time kickoff Sunday from Germany. It is the Falcons. It is the Colts. Set your lineup Saturday night or very early Sunday morning. Don't forget, we have a 10 a.m. Eastern Time waiver wire run with the FFPC. Falcons and Colts will not be eligible for that. So make sure that you have your ducks in a row before that kickoff in Germany, 9:30 a.m. Eastern Time on Friday. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. Thanks to Doug Haines. Thanks to everybody for making this a part of your Week 10 prep. I appreciate each and every one of you, and we will talk with you again next weekend on Friday when we're talking with Ferrell and Vinny Bonta.